Greetings, friends! Welcome back to another very special episode of the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. Hey, what's up, Nicolas Cage on YouTube? I see you over there, baby. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my super rich guy who I should feel bad for and co-host.
Definitely Alex Dandino. 100%.
All right, guys. Yeah,
I am rich.
I mean, you afforded that Nicolas Cage throw pillow, so things are going well.
Actually, it's a gift from my father, which plays into this movie today. Anyway.
All right, guys. Today we have a very special double feature presentation selected by one of our patrons, Aaron Klepfer. I believe he goes by Big Air on the Discord if you guys are in there. Thank you, Aaron. He's been a fan of ours for a while. He's a good guy. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your pick. So today, Aaron has decided, as part of our Patreon program, he would like to do a double feature of The Game and American Psycho. So that is the double feature we will be embarking upon today. Guys, if you want to select your own movies, go to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. For as little as $1 a month, you can join the community, get in, see what we're all about. As you go up the tiers, you can begin to actually select the movies that you would like us to cover in our Patreon exclusive library. Or you can pick double features or program a month, things like this that hit the main feed. However you want us to talk about movies, there are options available there. We work very hard to try to earn your money. We have some really cool projects we're going to be rolling out as the year goes on. So join us over there, patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Film Alchemist. You can see video versions of most of our pods there, along with some other, again, fun stuff we're working on. You can email the show. Yeah, set pieces, actual sets, or is it? Who knows? You can email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. You can find us on all the social media you're on. We're very easy to get a hold of. We love interacting and hearing from you guys, so get at us. Also, leave us those rating and reviews wherever you find the show. Quick 5-star sentence or two about why you like us. Helps us defeat the algorithmic corporations that are trying to make a mockery of our very existence. Oh, right. Enough business. Let's get down to it, damn it. I think this double feature is amazing, right? So The Game and American Psycho.
Good picks.
They get at this, the wealthy 1%, white guy who thinks he owns the world, and then that gets disrupted, right? Peeling back the face of the perhaps monster underneath of this wealthy class, or does it? But I think the two movies actually play really fun in tandem. So at the start, we're starting with The Game, right? So The Game is a film where we follow this man, Nicholas Van
Orton.
Yeah, Von Beefeater, whatever his name is. Nicholas, Little Nicky, right? So Little Nicky's running around in his daddy's palatial estate with Ilsa of the SS as his maid. So essentially this film... Okay, and this is another thing, Alex. Had you ever seen this before?
You know what's funny? I've only ever seen the trailer for this movie, along with the DVD for The American President, which is also some other classic Michael Douglas fare.
So I've never seen this either. So we're both going in blind. This is a strange movie. I am baffled by the amount of things that were head-scratching in this film. And it never quite settles on what it wants to be, right? The way I would best describe this movie is... This is Total Recall for your uncle that likes to hang out at the golf course, talk about stocks, and think Hooters waitresses are actually interested in him. Right? This is A Christmas Carol if you'd like to take out all that introspection and behavior change. Right? It's a movie that tells you up front that everything we're about to witness is a game, and then tries desperately to convince us that it's not. And I never know where this movie settles or how I'm supposed to be reacting to any scene. Alex, what did you make of The Game?
The Game's very stylish. I'll give it that. A lot of style in that Fincher fare. I'm not sure I'd characterize it quite like that. I'd say it's more like this is that movie where everyone's like, have you seen The Game? Dude, gotta see The Game. Like, The Game's just like one of those. I'm like, has
anyone ever talked to you about The Game in public? Because I've never had that.
No. This is one of those movies that, like, when it comes up, like, this is one of those movies that if there's an opportunity to bring it up, that guy brings it up. and it becomes that movie. It's just a head scratcher. There's a lot of just like really strange tangents this movie takes, and a lot of like a shockingly liberal amount of suspension of disbelief. There's a lot of that going on within the context of the movie that I think it's interesting. It doesn't suck. It's just interesting. Like it's very convoluted for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that there are large stretches of the film that really worked for me. There's some really good filmmaking, some really good acting.
Yeah.
And then it's just one of those films where there are constant grenades, right? You're starting to get into it, and you're like, yes. And then something happens, and I would immediately just be like, wait, what? And so then I would spend the next 15 minutes trying to like readjust my mind and rethink the whole movie as I had watched it.
Right.
And that happened about 5 times. I think I told this on the pod before, right? But I used to write movie reviews for this blog, right? And we would get called in every now and again to do, screenings with directors, and I'd get to write up, reviews and give them notes and whatever. And I remember this director told me once, he says, your job as a director is to never make the audience confused to where you lose them, right? He's like, every time something happens and they go, wait, what? You've lost them for an average of the next 7 minutes of the movie.
Right.
Right? And this is a longer movie than it needs to be. But let's assume it's an hour and a half movie, right?
Right.
You're already taking about 10% of their movie watching time. They're not paying attention to the movie. And I feel like this movie does that like 10 times.
It's interesting.
Constant.
It's interesting. For me, the question is not, what's the director said? The question is, what was it again?
Don't confuse your audience, because you lose them for about 7 minutes after that, right?
Right. So it's not. Sorry, that was the train of thought.
And it's not leaving them questions, but leaving them things that they absolutely are like, wait, what? Come on.
Right. That's what it is. The question for me through the game is not wait what, it's wait why. Like, that is a huge problem I have throughout the entire movie.
Let's start here, okay? Because I think my analogy to Total Recall is an apt one, right? Like, one of those debates you have all the time if you talk movies with people, right? Is Decker a replicant in Blade Runner? You're like,
which he is.
Maybe, but it's a less interesting movie in a way.
Right.
I always thought if Decker is a replicant, it's a little bit less interesting, right? Maybe some people feel the other way. I feel
the other way.
It's Total Recall of his like vacation experience, and you're like, yeah, probably, but that's way less interesting. I think Total Recall does a really good job of, because of the way it's packaged, right? It's Arnold in an Arnold movie. It makes sense that a guy like that is not just running a jackhammer, right? You're like, it makes sense that guy is now on this espionage tour. Total Recall does a great job of giving us permission to completely throw away Act 1 and pretend that we've just jumped into the Arnold movie that you always wanted to watch, right?
Right.
This movie has an enormous problem at its core, which is, I don't think there was 1 second of this film, not one, where I ever assumed this was not a ruse and that Michael Douglas was not going to come out okay.
Yeah.
Did you have that experience?
Yeah, no, there wasn't a single moment in this. This is what gets me back to the wait why for me is, yes, there was not a single moment in the movie that I was like, Michael Douglas might not survive this. Because of that, the entire time I was sitting there and going like, this just seems like a very elaborate way to get someone to like appreciate the thing. Like, there's just a lot going on that I didn't understand, because the entire time I was just like, I know he's going to be fine in the end, but like, this is a lot to get through to get to, it's all good. There's a lot.
We'll get to the lessons learned or not, per se, by the end of the film, right? But this felt very much like it's one of those old, screenplay 101 things, right? Add obstacles, right? Like,
right.
Oh, and I'm like, good Lord, they really believed in that, right? And what I thought was funny, though, right, is I think this movie, in a weird way, is working really well that it perhaps didn't intend, which is Michael Douglas plays such an absolute cock. Like, it is so masterfully done. It is so in his essence. I believe that that's how he wakes up every day, right? That he just wakes up in these pajamas that cost more than my house and just walks around being a fucking asshole to everyone on earth because we're less than him, right?
Right.
And that might not be how he is at all in real life. But it's so natural for him to be such a cock. And for the first like 25 minutes of this movie, the way he talks to everyone is insufferable. And you're watching it and you're like, the only regret I have in Act 1 of this movie is that it's not called The Hunt instead of The Game. Like, I want him to die and be punished because he's such a piece of shit. And it's just merciless, unrelenting.
He's like mercilessly rude to everyone.
Oh my God. And
everybody. Including his own brother.
His own. Well, I mean, Sean Penn is your brother, like walking in with the Seymour Butt / sneeze comedy intro. You're like, yeah, I'd probably be a little fed up with him as well.
Are you kidding me? This guy's just getting classic yucks. Good for him.
I was like, what are you in, like a Gallagher cult now? Like, what are you doing? You're pulling out the old bits? Like you're going to do the little Charlie Chaplin dancing potatoes at the table? But yeah, so it's just, but it's strange, right? So there is an element of this movie that worked really well, which was, this is everyone who watched Wall Street, right? And Gordon Gekko's greed is good, right? And that just avatar for this disgusting fucking run of wealthy one percenters, right? They want to take everything from the rest of us. We're just here to feed them. We don't exist, blah, 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 right? They live this whole other life. Right. I think he even says it to his secretary when he's just saying no to all these parties. And she's like, wow, that seems like it'd be okay. And he's like, you don't know society, so you don't know the joys of saying no. And I was like, kill him, take him down. Burn him at the stake. I'm over it. And that's what this movie does. So there is an element of this movie that works exceptionally well, which is it's all of us who hate that person and hate Gordon Gekko as this avatar for so many people we know, and usually because we're related to them.
Right.
That just are in that zone, and they talk to us like if we don't have our stock portfolio available for conversation all the time, we don't count.
Right.
It is really fun to watch them get dragged. And this movie does a great job of that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of this. I actually feel like the movie spends a lot more time trying to get us to. They spend a lot at the beginning because, like, the whole opening montage, which is like kind of like a Super 16 film, is supposed to like show you like this tragic death that happened in Michael Douglas' child is supposed to inform you of like why he's kind of a dick, even though it doesn't at all. He's just a dick because he's a rich guy. Yeah. But they spend an inordinate amount of time trying to make you almost sympathize with him, and then not at all do you spend as an adult. Like, him and as an adult almost immediately tarnishes that, and you're like, I don't really care what happens to this guy. It's really peculiar. Like, and I didn't understand, like, him being the main character of the movie is really fascinating. Because then, like, you kind of spend the rest of the movie, if you're watching it from our perspective, which is like, this 1%er guy is a dick to everybody, and then, like, his brother gives him this really weird gift. He also could have just thrown it away. Like, there's just all this other, there's a very strange thread that they're trying to pull for Michael Douglas's character for this whole thing to work. And, like, I was going to ask you, what motivates, because like he just seems like the kind of guy who's not going to be into this, like, and he also seems like the kind of guy who's dismissed his brother more times than not. So my question to you is, what makes him go to CRS to even do this? Like, why?
I think what it is, right, is they kind of lay some breadcrumbs that I think are supposed to make him a human person, right? Like, look at me, I'm a real boy. I'm not this fucking, corporate marauding Pinocchio, as it were, but he is. But they do I didn't realize this was the same birthday that Dad jumped off the roof and died, right? Oh, I didn't think of that. Oh, you almost missed my birthday. It's 11:40. Right. Him singing his little happy birthday to himself with his little fucking poppy seed cheese bee. And you're just like, that's depressing as fuck.
Yeah.
Right? Like, his life seems really fucking miserable. So they set that up. And then his brother comes in town. And so I think the CRS, they play this two ways, right? Is one, it's a chance to find out how his brother's fucking up and how he'll be able to, like, wield that over his brother again, right? And two, at the gym steam room, right? They have, like, this, like, locker room scene that I guess that's how rich people do it. They just, like, shower around each other and shit all the time.
Yeah, they're fine with all that.
Yeah, I don't know. Us less thans, we just go to the gym and then drive home to shower.
Yeah, us poors go and shower at our house.
We're not needed that badly. We can shower at home.
I don't need to show my manhood that badly in front of other people.
Or do we? Maybe that's what we're missing. That's how you get rich.
That's what I've missed.
Our side hustle as gigolos in the locker room. Oh, are you ready for your cloudy with a chance of meatballs down under, sir. But they play this thing, right, where these two actors, as we find out later, are like, this is like getting in on the ground floor of Disney, right? They're privately owned by a single family. So now they're fucking tickling his corporate raider thing, right? Like maybe he can get in, see what this is about, and crush it. He'd already taken the test by that point, so I'm not sure that actually works. I feel like those scenes were slightly out of place because it's the same thing. When he's in the room, though, he walks into CRS, and there's actually a really interesting scene that kind of plays the motif throughout the film, which is he walks in, and the lady's like, oh, I'm sorry, we declined your application.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, excuse me, interrupt what you're doing, assistant, work with me. And she just goes, shh.
You do have games at this game company?
Yes. Yeah, no, she fucking shushed him, right?
Yeah.
And he is like taken aback, like, the Vipers. How dare you, madam? And then the other guy's like, hey, hold my sack of lunch or whatever. So there's a real negging going on that I think in a weird way is what he's looking for. And the brother could have clued him in like, hey, maybe bring this guy down a peg. Maybe he likes it. Because that's the thing. I was saying to myself, I was like, if my brother got me a birthday gift and it was, hey, you have to go do a homework montage for like your entire business day.
Right.
I'd be like, yeah, I'm leaving. I'm quitting that.
Yeah, me too. I'd be like, why? I have to do like tests and shit. I'm getting out of here.
Well, the guy would have just been like, do you feel guilty when you masturbate? And I'd say, every single time. Catch you later. And I just walk the fuck
Not
out.
Only that, like, here's the other thing too is I only know this because I only know this because I've had to like I've had to work with like psychologists before for psych evals for work. Those tests that they gave him are like 400 questions long. Like,
dude,
it's
he's
super
like
annoying.
Sweaty from filling in circles. I was like, I would just leave. And then
like,
they're showing him the
Clockwork
Clockwork Orange like correctional facility video.
Yeah, what the fuck?
I'm assuming all of that is just to make sure that they don't have a heart attack, right? Because the other thing at the core of this
I
film
assume all of it is actually wasting his time so they can set up all that shit that they do.
Well, this is the other kind of problem at the core of the film, which is CRS as an entity makes less than 0 sense. Like, there's nothing about that setup or company that could actually exist.
There's no way they break even like ever.
But not only that, it's just, it doesn't make sense. Because these are a couple questions you have to ask yourself by the end of the film, right? How did you, because he filled out 400 questions about jerking off, you knew exactly what part of the roof he'd jump off? Right? What if he jumps like 5 feet to the side? That balloon is what, 50? But anyways, take that out, right? Here's another question.
Not yet.
So the idea of the gift that is supposed to teach him to be a better man is, let's turn San Francisco into literal Grand Theft Auto for you super rich guy. And I was like, isn't that how they already live? They just get to do whatever the fuck they want.
They're fine.
No one's ever died in the course of this game. Like, no guy's ever been in the cabin and been like, oh, fuck, I forgot the 1920s cranky. Ah! Like,
exactly.
What?
There's a ton of shit that's just like, this is and this gets to like the crux of the issue I have with the movie. Like, as a whole is, there's a lot of luck involved in making the game, so to speak, actually work. Like, there's two, like, we talk about this a lot, like, you give the one. You give the one for a movie because, like, this is a movie. You suspend some disbelief. Like,
right.
Yes, we all know a man does not fly around in an iron suit. We all know that there's not super soldier serum, those kinds of things. Like, so you have to give the one. The problem with the game is the one you have to give is literally like, hey, everything works out. Like, that's the one, is that, like, time.
Do you think that's actually that bad, though? Because as they're letting us know, these people they do constantly, like, cable repair service, right? They're everywhere. So him surviving the game, as it were, is them probably just looking out for him constantly.
Right.
Like, the weird one is when they jump into the dumpsters, and I was like, what? I was like, if you miss that by a foot, you are shattered spine. You're Conor McGregor all of a sudden. Like,
I was trying to figure that out. I was trying to figure that one out too. Is like, so because like when Christine, the woman, I think the actress name is Deborah Lee Younger, when she's Deborah Crawl, I don't know what her name is. But she's like hanging and her like legs are open and literally the fucking guys are like, oh, very nice, and just like, what the hell? And then she's like, oh, great, I forgot about that.
Well,
like,
she already climbed up the ladder in front of him, so I was
I'm like,
oh my God, this is like a pheromone trail scenario. She's like using this on purpose. Because he even comments on it. He's like, where's your modesty when dogs are attacking? And I was like, really, dude?
Well, it's like she made an excuse to cross her legs and like properly jump into a canister. Like, it's very, like, all of it is very strange to me. Like, this is what the movie does, actually, that I do really enjoy while I'm watching it, is after the game, quote unquote, starts, every single thing that happens makes me wonder what is the game and what's real. Absolutely, the whole time. Like,
yeah,
there is like that is the total recall of it that I actually really do enjoy. Is not only is like my suspension of disbelief is obviously like out the window, because I have to just assume like everything's not real. Like, everything has a chance of not being real. So like when he goes back to his house and like the whole place looks like the set pieces from Batman and Robin or Batman Forever. Sorry,
there's
it's
just
Batman Forever.
Rollerblading gangs all over.
Yeah, there's like rollerblade gangs and shit in there that have gone through his house and spray painted like Batman and Robin, that kind of shit.
That would probably be a part of our game if we ever got caught in one of these.
Yeah, for sure. No, if it was my game, it would definitely be like. But see, this is.
My game would be so much more interesting than this.
It's so funny because I texted you when I started watching this, and I was like, I don't understand this. Like, I literally, if I had to step in there, like, all right, here's a test to take, I'd be like, I'm gonna leave. I don't want to do that, and I just walk out and be like, whatever he paid you, just give him his money back, and like give me like $30, and I'll go get dinner or something.
Well, that's something we have to talk about at the end. Is apparently CRS's policy is if you're unsatisfied, you don't have to pay. And I was left at the end of the movie, and I was like, is this a satisfactory experience that he's just had?
Oh, yeah, we have we'll get to this at the end, because honestly, we like the conceit of the ending we have to talk about, because just everything is so. We'll get to it, but
we'll get to it.
So, like,
to your point though, right? There's a really great scene that I think illustrates that, right? And I don't know if you saw this, but when he
I watched the movie. I probably saw it.
Well, right, but I don't know if it like jumped out, right?
Oh, okay.
Because there's a lot going on. It's a very long film.
It's true.
And it feels twice as long as it is. But there is a bit when after he realizes the game is afoot, right? We get the little the doll, and they do the deep fake TV guy somehow. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. That was cool. Yeah.
That bit, you're like, all right, I'm captivated. Like, now we're playing the game, right? It's almost like Jigsaw's like grandpappy, right? And you're like, all right, I'm in. I'm really digging this setup. And he walks into the airport with the key in his pocket, and it's in slow-mo. And now this man who walks, not even looking at the rest of us because we don't exist to him, right? We are but dust beneath his, $2,000 shoes.
Right.
Now he walks into the airport, and every single guy, right? The janitor, the guy over here getting bags, and the guy in this vest, he's like looking at everyone, right? So in a way, just by being a part of this game, right, thinking that there's something afoot, he's actively engaging in the world more.
Right.
Right? And then that immediately is washed away when he refuses to help the dude out with the who's stranded. He's like, I need TP. And I was like, how are you sitting? You have both your little mitts under. I think I'd leave that guy too.
Yeah.
I'd be like, that's uncouth. Sorry, we're in a civilization. But I thought that airport scene, that was one of those scenes that really worked well. I mean, that's just the kind of thing when you have this much talent making a movie.
Right.
There's got to be scenes like that just sing.
Well, and I think they do a really good job of like, I was trying to pick up on every little thing. Like, some of them are really obvious. Like, I think it's the morning after that they drop in the dumpster drop when he's walking through the hotel lobby. And that guy bumps into him like, oh, that's definitely something. Mm. And then you drop the card, and then but here's this is the part where I was like, this is not a fun game anymore. Is when he gets up to the hotel room and there's fucking Polaroids of him just twacked out. There's titties everywhere. And then there's just cocaine and weed all over the table. I'm just like, who wants to play that game?
I don't think that was weed. I think that was a crack pipe. But
was that a crack pipe? Sorry, crack pipe. But I was just like, who? That's the part where I'm like, this cannot be a fun game.
Okay, now let's talk about this hinge moment, because this was an important difference in our reactions. Because I watched that scene, right? And let's assume that's even just weed. My immediate first thought was, why wasn't this room the gift? Like, I would just stay in that room. Like, when I walked in, I would just start stuffing my pocket with those Polaroids and start doing the drugs and being like, yeah, come get me, CRS. Thank you for the birthday present. I've learned my lesson, I guess.
Well, you know what else, though?
That's the thing, though. He sees the drugs, and he looks like such a fucking loser, where he's like, oh. I mean, he's holding that.
I can't
like
speak
Ace
to that.
Ventura holds the bat at the end of Pet Detective 2, right? That's how he touches, like, a mirror of drugs. He turns all of a sudden into, like, a Laurel and Hardy bit. And I was like, what is happening? You're telling me this guy's never done blow.
You know what's... Apparently not. You know what's interesting, though?
He's a square.
Is even... So
I love how I just said that like everyone listening is obviously doing drugs all the time.
This is like day two of... Technically like day 2 of the game, essentially. What's interesting is even now... So like the housekeeping bit was the part I kind of latched onto. Because even then, like... So he like runs to the door. And slams the door literally in this woman's face. Like pushes her back from the door. I was like, you could have just as easily said that you're in there. I'm like, you haven't learned this lesson yet. Like we're getting to that. We're getting to that later in the pod about like these lessons you're kind of supposed to clean, but like you're still treating people like they are movable set pieces.
Right.
Like they're like they are just like it's furniture.
Well, that part too is extra funny because he reacts to being in that room the way that my mother would, right? Like, like, you know, shocked and horror, like, I can't believe there's so much sin in one foyer or whatever, right? Whereas I think most of us would walk in and be like, awesome. Like, yes, this is, my brother's going to pop out and we're going to do the party now.
Cards on the table, I would have reacted like Michael Douglas. I'm a huge pussy. I absolutely would have done that.
That's your caricature.
That's
right?
me. That's who I am. I mean, I'm not a rich 1%er, but I absolutely would have freaked out if that was my fucking hotel room.
But I'm just saying, why do you think hotels like that exist?
For that reason. Why do you think you pay on your Amex corporate for the presidential suite if you're not going to do just a ton of blow and crack in it?
That lady would have walked in and be like, pretty light Tuesday, eh? Like that cleaning lady would have no fear of what she saw.
True,
none.
She would.
And I looked, but that led to one of my favorite scenes because what I think this movie did really well is watching Michael Douglas eat shit is infinitely enjoyable. It's weird because I told you this. I just have like a natural hatred for Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Not even that I think he's a bad actor. I think the exact opposite. But there's something about Tom Cruise that I despise, which is I can't imagine him in the world, right? Like I can't imagine he just like can act like a normal human being, right? And like you read these stories like he was at a Dairy Queen, and I was like, lie. And he saw that some kid needed medical treatment, so he paid the whole bill. And I was like, if that's true, great. But he's not doing that because he's a good guy. He's doing that because he's some kind of fucking robot, and that's going to be a PR thing. I'm glad the person got treatment, but what's your ploy, Tom Cruise? Right? Like every time I hear a story about him, good or bad, it's already part of my pre-built-in narrative, right? If it's good, I think it's a lie, whatever. I think he's just like an inanimate Robotron, and I don't trust him ever. I hate seeing his face. That's neither here nor there. Our weird Tom Cruise aside, but he makes great movies. That's how I feel after watching this about Michael Douglas. He's just this ultra hateable man. Everything that I don't love about a guy, he represents with effortlessness.
Are you talking about the Nick Van Orton, or are you talking about like Michael Douglas?
Both. I don't know anything about Michael Douglas. Didn't he say that he got throat cancer because he ate too much pussy?
Yes.
That sounds like something a mega douche would say. And I'm assuming that's not backed up by science. I'm assuming that's not how it worked.
Couldn't tell you. I'm not that in that regard. I am not a doctor.
That sounds very much like a humble brag.
I mean, good for you, bud. You know,
also,
do your thing.
Well, I mean, that sounds like one of those. I've been drowning in 10 pussy for years. Also, it sounds a little bit like you're doing it wrong. Like, you know, figure it out. Like, don't you have, you know, the YouTubes or the other?
It sounds like what he's. It sounds like I'm like, are you chain smoking while doing that? That is not the way to do it.
Yeah, where are the Polaroids of that? Because that is the kind of danger I need in the game. But that's what I just saying. Like, there's something hateable about him, and I think because I'm not an uncle, like a 48-year-old uncle, I guess Michael Douglas is never on my mind. Right? The last time I thought about Michael Douglas was when I was like, oh man, Catherine Zeta-Jones married him. And that was like the last time he'd ever crossed my mind.
I'm pretty sure that's the last time he crossed all our minds before like Ant-Man.
And I'm not saying that I want to wish him bad, right?
Not at all.
He's like a non-entity in my brain, right? If you had asked me to name movie stars, I bet he wouldn't be in like the top 1,000 I got to. That's just how he existed. And watching this today, for some reason, I was in some kind of surly mood. I had just been in a casino, so like I was around a lot of these guys who think they're like rich or about to be, and it's like, you're not, dude. You're gambling here at a table with me.
Well, I wonder actually.
There are these hateable vessels, right? And so I keep asking myself, how am I supposed to get through this movie? And then the scene when he runs in and yells at the happy old book publisher.
Yeah.
And he's like, you think pictures of me and nipple clamps and butt fucking Captain Kangaroo's gonna hurt me? And I was like, I love him just making a fool of himself.
Right.
So that element, right, the punishing Gordon Gekko element, this film does work.
Well, I feel like post Wall Street, that is how Michael Douglas made his bones post Wall Street, being like, he almost had to like atone for years for having been Gordon Gekko, because he rode this wave. Like, he was that guy. He is this patron saint of shittiness. And it's fascinating because, like, we've watched a bunch of other Michael Douglas movies, but the most important one we watched was definitely Fatal Attraction.
That's my favorite Michael Douglas movie, but again,
it's
movie
the same
works
guy.
because it's punishing Gordon Gekko.
He's a fucking dickhead who thinks he can get away with something. Like,
because he's fucking rich.
He's absolutely, like, through the 80s and like mid 90s, post Gordon Gekko, Michael Douglas is absolutely 1000% the avatar for rich white guys who think they should get away with all of it. Even in The American President, where he's supposed to be like the most ideal version of Bill Clinton that ever existed, he's still like a dickhead.
I feel like I don't remember that at all, apparently.
Yeah,
no, I'm like, Michael Douglas is to actors what James Patterson books are to like authors to me, where I'm like, why are there so many of those things? Who's fucking reading James Patterson books with American flags on the covers? I've never seen one in the wild. Who's reading them? And then you go to Thanksgiving and my uncle's like, I read a book for the first time in 25 years because it had stars and spangles on it. And you're like, oh, great. Thanks. Tell me more about this fucking plot to undermine whatever. Anywho, I'm just getting a lot of off my chest, right? I'm really
yeah, you've had a weekend, huh?
Yeah, I mean, Casino Griff's a wild monster, but
we're recording this on a Sunday. Apparently Griffey has had a hell of a weekend.
I'll tell you this, Casino Griffey won enough, and what did I do immediately with my winnings? Magic the Gathering cards. So, I mean, I understand the really cool, like, just living in it guy, right?
There's games and then there's the Gathering.
Yeah, we don't play games, motherfucker. You don't play MMA. You don't play Magic the Gathering. It's a lifestyle.
You don't CRS MTG. You don't know.
That's right. MTG's unfuckwittable. No. But it is funny too, as I was listening to this song to get ready for the casino, I was playing my my BBE Spotify playlist. You ever listen to that? Bad Bitch Energy?
I do.
And so when I was going into the casino, I had like my phone and I was listening to Did It On Him by Cardi B. Shit it on him. Shit it on him, right? That's what I was going to do to the blackjack dealer. This has nothing to do with the film. We are completely disintegrating.
We're going off the rails here.
That's what happened, though. Michael Douglas and James Patterson made me furious.
But this is... Okay, but like, here's the thing. Past this point in the movie, things derail really quickly, in my opinion.
The second half of this film is an absolute boneyard of ideas.
Yeah, like, it's literally, I mean,
you remember the scene in Lion King where it's like, everything the sun doesn't touch, we don't go over there? That's the second half of the game almost.
What it is when Griffey and I worked out at Wipeout, we had this section in the back of the art department, like, paddock, called the Boneyard, and it's literally where we kept all of the like used / failed stunts, like all the pieces for it were just back there just in case someone had a hair up their ass and wanted to make something else up. That is exactly what the second half of the game is. Like, imagine anybody throwing shit at the wall and be like, I think that'll work. That's exactly what goes on. Like, we're talking, like, and in this case, imagine anybody coming up with anything that, like, to make someone feel like their life is not only in mortal danger, but, like, every kind of danger you can think of. Like, emotional, physical, mortal, like,
sexual.
all of it. Sexual, like, every piece of danger imaginable in the world, that is what's getting thrown at the wall to, like, essentially make Michael Douglas feel alive. It's very weird. Like,
okay, now that's where we gotta just slam the e-brake, because there is a part of the film, right?
We gotta crash this thing in the water right now.
He's checking his bank accounts, whatever.
You're right.
And the lawyer calls, and he's like, your accounts are fine, man. And the paranoia is kicked in, right? This is kind of the last scene that this works. Mm-hmm. Where now he's not, she's like, he's in on it. And it's a lovely moment. It's beautifully acted. Michael Douglas is a great actor. Let me get that out. After I just spent time shitting on him. He's a great
but that's
actor.
Because he's that good.
Yeah, I shitted on him, but he's a great actor, right? Sorry, Cardi. Me and Cardi, that's just how we roll. But he's a great actor, and it's a beautifully played moment, right? Where she just mouths, he's in on it. And in my mind, you're sitting there, and why is this character accepting her word over his life, or his long time, maybe not lifetime, but his long time lawyer friend who watches his back, right? And it is because there's something the movie wants us to believe, which is Nick desperately wants this to be real. He believes his lawyer could betray him. He believes everyone's after his money, right? He's essentially like a low-rent Scrooge McDuck in this film.
Very much so.
And I was like, is that... Okay, like, take that aside, right? He's a paranoid rich guy. I'm assuming that comes with the territory, right? You have so much money that you got to pay other people to help you manage it, and you're afraid people are stealing.
All your acquired wealth is always losable.
Yes. Sure. And he's like $600 million. Because that's the other thing. They're like, they cleaned out your bank accounts. And I'm like, oh, God, no. He just probably has cars and yachts and a house. And oh, no, now he's just like a normal 100 millionaire. Right? Like, whatever. But it is
somewhat touchable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this beautiful scene of paranoia. And then there is a strange and weird, this is like, gets back to this 90s thing, right? Where what is the worst thing that can happen to this rich guy? He wakes up in Mexico. Yep. Like, just being in Mexico is like, oh, God. Right?
Not just being, like, wakes up. So she, like, basically, he gets dosed and he wakes up in a coffin.
This is Serpent in a Rainbow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Serpent in a Rainbow. He wakes up in a coffin in Mexico. And then, like...
in a burning cemetery? There's just, like, fire everywhere.
Okay. But then, like...
This is how your uncle who thinks the Hooters waitress is winking at him all the time imagines Mexico.
I was just about to say, and then this is like the uncle who loves Hooters, like, response to that moment.
Yeah.
Is the next scene is him on the corner meeting a guy, and then he'd be like, embassy, American. Like, I'm like, you don't know how to say Americano? Like, you're a rich guy. Of course you know how to say Americano. Like, those kinds of things.
I thought that was
like,
just a coffee, so I guess I'm guilty too. See, now Michael Douglas is relatable.
Oh, no, I'm sure it is. What I'm saying is, like, Michael Douglas, that character is racist enough to absolutely say something like that. I was like, come on, man. Like, lean into the part if you're going to do this shit.
Okay, before we get to the descending end, I did want to ask you about a question, right?
Sure.
Because they try, there's another lever point of the film where they ask you have to buy in, right?
Right.
Which is that Conrad has set him up to get himself out of trouble, right? Conrad, that, Sneeze Comedy Brother, is obviously the troubled one.
Right.
And he opens the car and there's all these fucking, keys and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was just rough. I felt like, because this is like, did we honestly believe that moment? And then they're going out on the street and just airing out laundry, spilling tea on people's front porches about, I don't want to be you, I'm not you. I mean, insane shit. Like, insane, crazy family arguments just on the sidewalk.
There's legitimately...
Wait, let me ask you, though. Is that the moment where you said, oh, shit, he's in trouble? Or...
No.
Conrad is a really bad, like, improv actor.
Conrad's a really bad improv actor. Like, and this is the problem with calling a movie The Game, is there's never going to be a time that I'm not going to think, this seems like horse shit. Like, even in its darkest, okay, because like the big,
so actually, what's the one when they shoot the machine guns?
No, it's the car
in the cab.
Yeah, the cab.
Well, that is the moment where I legitimately was like, oh shit, like things are getting dangerous.
Well, here's the thing.
But then he had the crank, so it's immediately reminding you that it's the game.
But that's what it is. Like, this is the problem, is like, it's dangerous because like he might fuck up. Mm-hmm. What's not dangerous is the crank. You're like, so wait a second. Possibly murdering this guy in a cab is the game? Like you were saying earlier, what if he didn't figure it out? Like, finding, and by the way, if you're just gonna put like the little the thing he's supposed to crank is literally the same color as the door, like he would, like, if you're panicking, you're not looking for a small thing in a door. It's not even like the unlocking mechanism. Like,
true.
That's the part where you're
like,
I
get rid of the game stuff. It's just the like, take that out, right? 'Cause you're probably right. Like, would I be like, where's the nipple for the crank? No.
It's like the inverse of prop comedy. Like, it's this weird, like,
prop drama.
It's prop drama. Yeah. Like, you're just like, wait a second. Thank God he's got that. Like, it's a little too, I get it. Like, that's the bit.
Are you saying this movie should have been called The Deus Ex Machina?
I'm pretty sure this movie is just one big Deus Ex Machina, but go ahead.
But that's what I mean, though, right? Because this is that you watch the film and you can't help but be stunned occasionally, right? By Michael Douglas is a great actor, right? Like, most of the cast is really killing it.
Oh, it's
the
a great
directing
cast.
is really good. There are scenes that just flow, and there's great cinematography at moments. You're really in. And then I feel like that's the problem, though, right? Like, that cab scene's a great example of the double-edged sword of the film, right? Which is, oh shit, it's cranking up a notch. They're trying to get this motherfucker. And then as soon as he has the crank, you're like, but it's a game. And what do they gain by killing him? Right? We don't do the money reveal until the end of Act 2.
I'm assuming the death would be an unsatisfactory experience. So he'd get all his money back.
Well, so you're just like, Jesus Christ. Win-win. Yeah, we have an hour left of this movie. Like, they're not going to, unless Sean Penn just takes it over, like, from Dusk Till Dawn style. And
we have an hour left of this movie. We have an hour left of this movie, and we've already almost drowned. Like, Jesus, that should be the climax. There's actually, I don't know what scene it is, but apparently a scene from this movie made it in the Bravo's like scariest movie moments list. Really? I'm not sure which scene it is. I'm assuming it's the car, but yeah, I had no idea. Scariest like, I was just like,
moments.
Yeah, I don't know what scene it is. I'm assuming it's the near drowning, but. Like, again, or it's the end of the movie, which we'll get to.
Well, I mean, this is, I wanted to be, but then there's this so they start talking to the cops are in on it. They go to the hospital, and when the lights shut down and everyone just left, I was like, did he not know there's just like a prop hospital? I was like, wouldn't a hospital in a big city like this not be like, hey, fuck off. You can't just stop, like, working so that this guy can get a yuck.
I was like, what is this, is this a Christopher Nolan movie? What's going on here?
Well, that's the thing, is that it's strange because I think there's a version of this film, right, that has more of a Point Break vibe, which is Sean Penn is kind of he's working with this collective, right? And they're like, our job is to destroy the people that go home and watch whatever Fox Business show that was. And that we will crush you, and that this is an unfair. And that fights against the home movie, my dad killed himself at 48, like, Ebenezer Scrooge storyline that they want us to buy.
Right.
And again, I feel like because of who Michael Douglas is, the punishing the rich element of this story was kind of in. When she was just like, don't drink stuff that I gave you, I caught in. Watching him, like, try to get back to California, I feel like for a movie this long, they could have spent more time on that. I feel like there was moments there that would have been
I think that's the game right there.
Yeah.
Man. Okay, can we talk, like, that would be to me, like, that's the capper. If you show back up in San Francisco after being keel-hauled and brought into a fucking tomb in Mexico, that should be like a, hey, well done.
Well,
you're
okay,
here. You've won the game.
Let's talk about like 2 or 3 bits, right? So one, the pop psychology moment of, you should sell the watch that your mother engraved for you from your dead father.
Right.
I was like, are we to believe that thoughtful gift is somehow part of his problem? Like, what? All right, let's do number 2, right? Him walking in and just making a fucking pronouncement to the whole restaurant. I have 1878. I need someone to drive me from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Everyone turns around, and we cut to him balled up on the front seat of a truck. And I immediately was like, how did he pay to get to San Francisco? Did he follow the rules of the road?
He followed the rules of the road.
I think so, too. I think so, too. And that's just like one of those weird, like, we don't need to explain. Because I was like, here's an idea. What if he actually talked to one of these average common citizens in this section of the film? What if he acted like the citizens of Mexico or truck drivers in a diner were actual human beings that were worthy of his conversation?
He's like, it is a strange... wow, I didn't think about that. That is a strange thing in this movie that he literally will not talk to any lesser thans. No. Like... That one old other rich guy is like the only other person he's willing to like tell the truth to, and then like Christine, but she's
and then his ex-wife, right?
His ex-wife,
like,
right?
That scene too is another one of these like it's just the problem of this film is that you feel like there's a David Fincher rocket in here, and you're like this thing's gonna take off and be good, right? Because this movie I would imagine would be filed under thriller. But it can't thrill you, right? Because he's like, I got nothing. I got to like, blow my way back to San Francisco. And you're like, all right, he's like going through it now, right? Now he went from a $600 million guy to like, yeah, I will suck your dick for a ride. Like, that's a story I want to hear about.
Right.
That's where this movie should exist, right? That's real choices being made. He shows up and he just goes, hey, can I have your car? And she goes, yeah, sure. And I was like, that's the problem at the core of the movie is that at every turn, he's still just impossibly rich.
He still gets things.
And everyone he knows is impossibly rich. Right. And he's just a beautiful, like, middle-aged white guy. Like, he's going to be fine.
Like, it's interesting that, like, the lessons that he's really supposed to learn as a person whose life is dismantled. The lessons he's supposed to learn at every single instance, like you're talking about, are flung to the wayside for the sake of moving the movie forward because it's a game. Like, we have no time to actually do any character development because this guy's so busy, like, kind of not getting murdered a lot that he's like, there's no time for Nick Van Orton to stop and like examine, like, I think I'm a little bit of a shitbag, and of course my brother would give me something like this to like change my life. He said it would change my life. Like, at no point do we examine that initial meeting again. Like, we don't have that conversation. Like, there's so much more psychology that should be going into why this is happening to him and him like self-reflecting properly about like his relationship with his brother or his lack of relationship with his brother. His relationship with Christine seems almost more fruitful in a lot of ways. And you're like, why is this happening?
Right? There's something that struck me in the movie is that at his end, good job for surviving maybe party.
Jesus Christ.
Is that his fucking daughter that he strokes her hair?
No, I think that's her daughter.
So he never had a kid with her?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because he kind of strokes her hair, and I was like, one, if that's not your kid, hands to yourself, monster. And two, if that's his kid, why is that not what he's fighting for? Right?
Yeah.
Like, but that's just one of those weird things. I'm like, that could have been addressed more.
Well, so the last 10 minutes of this movie is the part where I like...
They go for it.
I mean, it's like...
I did like the idea of it was To Kill a Mockingbird as his gun book. to kill an improv actor by Harper Triley, bitch. Harper, try me, bitch. When he's
to kill a point really, really home. Jesus, to just ram it down your throat. It's because like the movie is just what it is. But that last 10 minutes are just like so bonkers, and you're just like, whoa. So he's up on the roof. Him and Christine are having this standoff, and she's freaked out because she's like, oh my God, where did you get that gun? That's not supposed to be a real gun. And she's calling out. She's obviously part of it. She's like, the CRS, like, hey, I have a live gun. And they're like,
they didn't happen to find his gun book or his jar with cash in it.
Yeah, apparently they're like, I don't know, these are like the worst detectives of all time. Or like snoops. I don't even know what you call these people. But
Right. But
so,
I mean, that's the thing though, right? Is that you never buy into this that's a real gun, did you?
No, not at all. Well, the thing that this is the part that I fucking laughed at, and I was just like, we're really trying at the very end here. We're really pushing the limits here of me like willing to go along for this any longer. Is after they like burst through the door and he shoots Sean Penn. You hear it's like a throwaway line in the background, like some random ADR thing where it's just like some guy like, "You never let the mark take control," and you're like, "Are we still doing this, guys? It's over. This guy is like, the movie's done." Like,
I knew he was in trouble when the guy's like, when he called that actor's wife, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a casting director. We want to give him a part," and she's like, "He's at the zoo with my children. Go there and find." It's like, what? So you kind of, but I'm like, oh, those kids are plants. That fucking tiger's probably like a Robotron.
Everything's bullshit.
Here's the problem, though. And again, it's this constant, every time something's happening that you're fascinated by, there's a little bit of a leaden response. Because this is America, right? And so my assumption that no one who's ever been part of the game grabbed a fucking gun and went after someone is impossible. They make it out because he had one fucking leather-bounded dish he was able to fucking slither a gun through. I was like, you could just find guns literally everywhere in America. There's just guns. Yeah. We're overflowing with guns. So I was like, someone would have been shot and murdered so fast. So my mind is already, and I think this gets back to the, hey, can I have your car? Yep. Alrighty, bye. Is that you just, not even for a second, think that gun was going to be real, right?
No.
And what makes me sad is, I thought there was a pretty intriguing tension in that idea, right? Is what if he's been pushed so far because this company is so bad at writing adventures that he actually shoots. But then this is the other thing. Here's the real psychological part that I was very fascinated by. What if he knew it was a ruse, right? And when she says Conrad's behind that door, he was like, this is my fucking chance. I can kill Conrad and claim psychological abuse. Right. And he wanted to fucking shoot him.
How much more, but how much more interesting would the movie have been if that was the case? If the movie ended there, you'd be like, whoa, that is some weird, like, we talk about it a lot, and I think we like these kinds of movies. That's a weird, be careful what you wish for situation. Yes. It's like, what lesson were you trying to teach? It's been devalued because you went too far. Like, that would be a really cool twist in the movie. I think that'd be a really interesting way to go. Like, it's weird to me that, so, I mean, the jumping off the roof thing, and actually, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like, yeah, I mean, you're pretty much at the end of your rope. You've actually, like, committed murder now. Like, and then, like, all these people like, oh, shit. And the whole time I was like, he's going to hit the ground and then be like, oh, fuck, like, and like somebody like pulls a fucking Chinatown, like, that's the game, and then they walk away or some bullshit, like, because that's,
don't worry about it, Nikki, it's just the game.
Well, no, but to be honest with you, like, that's like a Fincher thing. Like, to me, that would make a lot of sense. Like, Fincher is like totally fine making movies where like strings are not tied. The bow is very unruly at the end of Fincher movies. Mm-hmm. For him to like crash through plated glass and land in this big, like, I mean, I don't know what those things are called, but basically land on a giant pillow and everyone be like, hey, welcome. And like, they throw in that fucking stupid, like, it's breakaway glass, but it still can cut them. Like, stop.
Also, here's the other thing. So all these rich motherfuckers are sitting in this room. They watch him fall through the fucking glass, right? A man whose father killed himself by jumping off a roof.
Yes.
He falls through the glass. His troublemaking brother runs in, covered in blood, with a fucking shirt about getting drugged and taken to Mexico. And not anyone's like, I have questions, right? Like, no, they're all just like, he actually sucks and we don't care. Let's just get to drinking champagne.
But like, okay, I thought about this. I actually paused the movie at this point, and I like, because Andrea had come home and she's like, what are you watching? I'm like, watching the game. Because I have to watch a lot of these on my phone because my kid gets the TV to watch like Onward and other Pixar fare. So I'm watching a lot of these on my phone. So I'm watching the ending on my phone, and my wife's like, "What are you watching?" And I'm like, "The game." And she's like, she's sitting there with me, and we're watching it, and that happened. She goes, "Did he just fall through a plate glass window and he like survived?" I'm like, "We don't have time for that right now." But then everyone's standing there. I paused it. And I'm like, okay, imagine being at that party. And because then later on they show you like the invitation, which says like, hey, be here between 8:17 and 8:38. I'm like, that's fucking annoying. But like the other thing that I'm like, think about going to that party and sitting there and being like, all right, guys, we've pretty much psychologically maimed this guy. He's going to fall through that plate glass window, hit that airbag, and then we get to party. Doesn't that sound great? And I'd be like, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm leaving right now. Here's my $50 for his birthday. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Like, I don't want him to think I was in on this. I want to be the friend who's like, I did not have a part of this.
Well, no, it's like just roll your ass off the balloon where you just imagined being your father jumping to his death after you killed your brother. Roll your ass off here and pay for half, bro. Wear your novelty t-shirt. And he even has the gall. He goes, happy birthday, Nikki. And he goes, I had to do something. You were becoming such an asshole. And I was like, while that may be true, the only real evidence we have in the film is that you are the biggest asshole of the movie, right? You thought this was a good
That was the way to do it?
Wake-up call? There is a way to look at the movie, though, right? So I was like, so then he's in the like shining ballroom, and like all these extras are just rubbing up on his rich friends, and I was like, what is happening? There's a version of this where I was like, did he actually fucking die, and this is his version of hell? It's like he's just stuck in this birthday party, and his brother's like the main guy.
Actually, you know, my favorite is the guy who plays the CRS guy who intakes him, who pretends to be the actor. Says that, and he's like, oh boy, am I glad you jumped. Part of the script is I would have had to thrown you instead. And I'm like, what the fuck is this thing? Who would ever participate in this behavior? Like, but it's like, but to your point, yes, like there is this like seventh circle of hell thing where you're like, absolutely, you would like, of course, a personal hell would be being stuck at a party where you've literally like, you have to just like be okay with everything that's happened over the last essentially, what do you think? Like, does it take place over like 72 hours or something like that?
It's got to be more if he's hitchhiking from Mexico.
Oh, dude, you can do that in a day. Like, it's just like...
Hitching?
I mean, if you're a rich white, they're fine, you know.
See, I would put it at like a week, but... I mean, that's the overall theme of the movie is he's fun. This is what... My issue with the film, though, is... I think there's a lot of great stuff. I feel like we're doing a lot of like kind of nitpicking and nagging at the overall like conceit of the film.
Deserved.
What I think is fair though is that by the end of the film, I'm left to ask, right? Because like this is one of those Fincher things too, where I don't think he values humans very much.
No.
And I mean, I get that. I fucking get that. I do. So the final of the movie is that his brother makes this fucking ruse, and somehow we're to believe this is good and welcome and that he's learned something, which we have no evidence of in the movie.
None.
He runs out to ask the woman that he said, I'm about to kill you, you know, an hour or two ago on top of the roof. He's like, I'm going to fucking murder you. He runs out and he's like, hey, can we go on a date? And she's like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Because why? Because he's rich? Because she doesn't want to go to Australia to be an extra? Like, what? What? And the burning question you're left with, right? Do I want this guy to be happy, and do I think he's done anything to earn like a newfound happiness? And I would just ask anyone, what scene did Nick learn a lesson that goes against the core of who he was, which was a lonely, sad, bitter, rich man who treated everyone around him like a piece of shit. Like they were actual shit to just be brushed aside out of his path. Right. What scene, once the game starts, right? Because that's the idea of the film that we all latch onto. Punishing Gordon Gekko. What scene of the film does Gordon Gekko reflect on his behavior and say, you know what? I am sorry that I got you fired for spilling drinks on me. Except when he's like, yeah, I know the guy can pull some strings. It's like, but that's not an apology. Notice that he didn't even apologize to the publisher, where he threw fucking titties and balls and whatever at him in front of his daughter-in-law and his wife. And he's like, butt fucking kangaroo. And he just said, excuse me for my misguided ... and left the room before he finished the fucking apology.
Right.
That's who he is at his core.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the film, I'm a little left uncaring that this man's going to get another shot.
Yeah, I think that it's this like weird... I guess that this is like truly, it's the Fincher maxim, which is like, there's nothing to necessarily learn. You got what you wanted out of it. Like, essentially, there's no consequences to what happened. You just have to pay the bill.
Well, there also is a more meta way to examine the film that might work better, right? And if I watched it again, maybe this is what I would look for, is that turning this city into a game for just a guy that wealthy feels pretty fucking accurate to how we live our lives, right? They get to do whatever the fuck they want. And shooting and him driving around like a madman, I'm like, he's not going to run over a pedestrian or someone's dog. But who cares, because he's that rich. And there's a way to look at the movie that this rich guy can just, because he wants to feel anything, can turn where we just live into his personal nightmare video game scapes and fuck around. There's something to that that's really interesting. And I think that's what I will remember most about the game, is all this stuff that I really liked and these concepts that I think are really fun. And at the core, the movie called The Game, it's the game that somewhat suffocates the movie.
Yeah, 100%. I would say that's absolutely my takeaway as well. I think the movie gets in the movie's really pointed pace of plotting gets in the way of what I think is actually supposed to be the value of the movie itself, which is like this lesson about appreciating everything. Like, it's supposed to be this Christmas Carol story, essentially. And I think because it's supposed to be, but because it's called The Game and it has to be this very elaborate set piece, essentially, all that stuff gets in the way and does not necessarily end up, like, no one is demonstrably different at the end of the movie than they were at the beginning. Yeah. So,
and that's probably how most stories end, right? And you have to remember, this movie is directly aimed at your uncle that owns more than 20 polo shirts. And then it starts to click in, and I think I do feel a little sad, right? I'm sorry, Aaron, if you're upset at us. We love you. There is a lot of good movie in here.
I'm not disappointed I watched this.
This is not an irredeemable bad film.
No, not at all. I'm not mad I watched the movie. Yeah. I think what's upsetting is that I saw potential for it's rare because like that's not like, we don't rewrite movies on this pod. But like from a viewing standpoint, I saw so much potential for a movie that I think would have really grabbed me. Mm-hmm. And instead we got a very pointed plotting device that overshadows a lot of like kind of unique story elements.
And that's the thing, right? You could make the same argument that in Fatal Attraction, Michael Douglas doesn't really learn a lesson. He only feels sad that he got caught and is about to fucking face consequences. Yeah. That movie really is about a guy who just is like, she's so crazy that everyone will pin it on her and forget that I'm the one who went and fucked her, right? Like, he's a guy who doesn't just confront his problems, I guess, unless it's with an ice pick. And so you could make the case that maybe we're being slightly unfair to this one. It's just, I think it's a strange bag of decisions, right? And it's just, there's so much talent that, and I think that's what you do, right? You whip the movies you love a little more because you're like, there's a movie that I really like. Sometimes you watch a movie and you just go, like I don't even care because it's not even worth caring about. Right. There was stuff that was pulling me in.
Yeah, and absolutely.
They were almost like, pulling their CRS badges out and being like, gotcha, bitch.
That's all you got.
That's it for The Game. Aaron, I really hope this was a fun episode for you. I'm sorry in advance if you're mad at us. We'll make it up to you, I swear. On part 2, American Psycho. This is a wealthy, scary white guy's double feature. So right now, today, find part 2 of this double feature, American Psycho. Prepare yourself for the October onslaught coming on. Lots of horror movies with our friends. We'll be announcing our full lineup soon. So be ready for that, guys. Start watching all your horror movies now. Make sure you go to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod so you, like our friend Aaron, can select the movies that you want us to discuss on the show. We are happy to do that for all of you guys. We'll watch anything. No one's found the movie yet that's too far for us. So, not that we're trying to do that. Email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Film Alchemist. You can find us on all the social media you're on, and we would appreciate it if you left a rating and review wherever you find the show. We'll be back right now with American Psycho. For the Film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey.
I'm Alex Dandino.